Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Sutara Sutta Shri Srimad Divine Grace of Bhāgavatam Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Sutara Sutta Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhāgavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled, I have done my part. Srila Prabhupada was well aware of the powerful sway science held over people everywhere, and he was out to combat their godless propaganda. He knew that Bhagavad Gita was the highest science, and he saw how outrageously prejudiced many scientific assumptions were. For all their high technical jargon and faith in the scientific method, the scientists were actually ignorant of the origin and purpose of life. Swarup Damodar and a few other devotees holding graduate degrees had formed the Bhaktivedanta Institute and were working within academic circles to establish the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada had been especially pleased when at a large meeting of scientists, Swarup Damodar had challenged a Nobel Prize-winning scientist who held that life was a phenomenon that occurred at a certain level of chemical complexity. If I give you the required chemicals, Swarup Damodar had asked him, will you be able to produce life? And the embarrassed scientist had replied, I don't know. Repeatedly, Srila Prabhupada had referred to that incident in his conversation and lectures. Srila Prabhupada often praised the work of Swarup Damodar and the Bhaktivedanta Institute and assured them that the BBT would provide funds for their printing, research, and building projects. He had given them the arguments, and they were developing them with scientific language. Now Swarup Damodar had come for more association with Srila Prabhupada, and after offering obeisances, he presented Srila Prabhupada with several pink lotus flowers. Srila Prabhupada took one in his hand and opened the petals. The others he gave to his secretary for presenting to the deities. Swarup Damodar also brought several ripe pineapples, and Prabhupada immediately asked for a glass of fresh pineapple juice. Swarup Damodar was arranging for a conference of scientists in Vrindavan to discuss the origin of life. He had been meeting with various scientists and professors, many of whom had shown interest in Swarup Damodar's approach and in participating in the conference. Swarup Damodar read Prabhupada the prospectus he had prepared announcing the upcoming conference. Prabhupada listened silently and at the end said, all glories to Swarup Damodar. Later in the afternoon, they spoke again. It seemed that Prabhupada was never too tired or too indisposed to speak with Swarup Damodar about defeating materialistic science. Swarup Damodar was getting hope from his conversations with scientists. He told Prabhupada, "I think they're interested in the program we are making. Otherwise, they wouldn't take time to discuss. Some of them feel our approach is unique." "There is no other such proposal," said Srila Prabhupada. "They have taken God as something mystical, especially this rascal Darwin's theory. They have become like animals, and they are seeing everyone as animals. This rascal has convinced them, your grandfather was a monkey. How could they become the son of a monkey?" But this was going on. A grand rascal, this Darwin, and his theory is taken as the greatest principle of anthropology to the whole world. So scientists by combined meetings should speak out against this Darwin's theory. On the day of Swarup Damodar's arrival in Vrindavan, the first rains also arrived, indicating the end of summer and the start of the monsoons. Heavy rains beat down while Prabhupada and Swarup Damodar continued talking. Prabhupada said that the Vedic evolutionary theory had been presented in the Padma Purana thousands of years before Darwin. "If we can get some big scientists on our side," said Swarup Damodar, "at least a few, that will be enough." "That I am asking," said Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna figured that Srila Prabhupada would be tired after 2 hours of talking, so he interrupted. "Would you like a kirtan party now, Srila Prabhupada?" But Prabhupada corrected him. "This is kirtan now going on. People have to understand what is kirtan. Any topics of Krishna, that is kirtan. Shukadeva Goswami became perfect by kirtan. But what kind of kirtan did he do?" "He was speaking the Bhāgavatam," answered Tamal Krishna. "Yes," said Srila Prabhupada. "You are simply thinking drums and kartals is kirtan. But anything we do here is kirtan. There is no material connection here. We are not talking how to increase our business and enjoy women and wine. This is not our aim. Ka uttama shloka gunanuvada. We are trying to establish Krishna. That is kirtan. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu. Do you know this?" Taking this remark as his cue, Swarup Damodar went on to speak about scientists he had met who were interested in the proposed Origin of Life conference. "I'm thinking of the title of our conference," he said, "as a Bhaktivedanta Vigyan conference in Vrindavan." "No," said Srila Prabhupada, "they will take it otherwise, thinking that Bhaktivedanta is not a jnani. They will take it lightly because Bhaktivedanta Swami is not a scientist." One of the devotees said that Bhaktivedanta actually indicated the highest scientists, and Srila Prabhupada agreed. But to understand bhakti, he said, was very difficult for the ordinary man. "Why not life comes from life?" asked Prabhupada, and Swarup Damodar immediately agreed. "Make something extraordinary," said Prabhupada. "We are not just some magicians like the other yogis. There is money, intelligence, and I can give you inspiration." Srila Prabhupada ki. Just see, life comes from life. And now we're distributing it all over the world in every language on the planet. This is Prabhupada's special gift. Inspiration to those who can carry on the mission. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, 19th chapter, text 33, chapter titled The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha. Sutovacha eti kosha brakakyatam eti kosha ravakyatam ashrutya bhagavatkatam ashrutya bhagavatkatam Satanandang parang lebe. Satandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Vrakakyatam. Ashrutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Please chant. Sutta Vacha. Ati Kosha Vrakakyatam. Ashutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Ashutya Bhagavat Pratam. Satanandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Close the door. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Ashrutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang param lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Ashrutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang param lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Ladies. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Ashutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Iti Kosha Ravakyatam. Ashrutya Bhagavat Katam. Satanandang parang lebe. Mahabhagavato Dvija. Sutta Vacha. Sutta Goswami said, Iti, thus, Koshrava, Kosharava, from Maitreya, son of Kusharu, Akyatam, told, Ashrutya, having heard, Bhagavat Katam, the narration about the Lord, Sata, Vidura, Anandam, bliss, Param, transcendental, Lebe, achieved, Mahabhagavata, the great devotee, Dvija, O Brahmana, Shonaka. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Sutta Goswami continued, my dear Brahmana, Sata, Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kosharava, Maitreya, and he was very pleased. Please repeat. Sri Sutta Goswami continued. My dear Brahmana, Shata, Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kosharava, Maitreya, and he was very pleased. Purport. If anyone wants to derive transcendental pleasure by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, he must hear from the authoritative source, as explained here. Maitreya heard the narration from his bona fide spiritual master, and Vidura also heard from Maitreya. One becomes an authority simply by presenting whatever he has heard from his spiritual master. And one who does not accept a bona fide spiritual master cannot be an authority. This is clearly explained here. If one wants to have transcendental pleasure, he must find a person with authority. It is also stated in the Bhāgavatam that simply by hearing from an authoritative person, with the ear and the heart, one can relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. Sanatana Goswami, therefore, has especially warned that one should not hear anything about the personality of the Lord from the lips of a non-devotee. Non-devotees are considered to be like serpents. As milk is poisoned by a serpent's touch, so although the narration of the pastimes of the Lord is as pure as milk, when administered by serpent-like non-devotees, it becomes poisonous. Not only does it have no effect in transcendental pleasure, but it is dangerous also. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has warned that no description of the pastimes of the Lord should be heard from the Mayavada or impersonalist school. He has clearly said, Mayavadi Bhashya Sunile Hari Sarvanas. If anyone hears the Mayavadi's interpretation of the pastimes of the Lord, or their interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhāgavatam, or any other Vedic literature, then he is doomed. Once one is associated with impersonalists, he can never understand the personal feature of the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. Sutta Goswami was speaking to the sages headed by Shonaka, and therefore he addressed them in this verse as Dvija, twice born. The sages assembled in Naimisharanya hearing Srimad Bhāgavatam from Sutta Goswami were all Brahmanas. But to acquire the qualifications of a Brahmin is not everything. Merely to be twice born is not perfection. Perfection is attained when one hears the pastimes and activities of the Lord from a bona fide source. Om Jnana Tamanda Shagaranjana Shalakaya Chakshor Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Tegaram Yakipatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. The demon is dead. So, of course, now we know that the purport of the killing of Hiranyaksha was that the Lord, in whatever feature he appears, is always there to pratranaya sadhanam vinaschaya chadushkatam. To please the devotees, even when they're in the bodies of demons. Hiranyaksha was the associate, the eternal associate of the Lord, not just an ordinary associate, you know. It's difficult to, so many people on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but they did not have the eyes to see, and therefore they were denied, although they achieved a state of liberation. That liberation is not a permanent feature necessarily. Liberation from sinful activities, liberation simply enables one, suchinam srimatam gehe, that he can take birth in a pious family. You know, so this is a broad subject. But to understand the essence, therefore the Srimad Bhāgavatam is spoken. So this is we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the postgraduate study. We have the undergraduate study. We have the graduate study, just like all the students who are coming in their various stages of education. So the Srimad Bhāgavatam is giving us in the very beginning, in the second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, everything that Srila Prabhupada is speaking here specifically in relationship to being twice born, atak pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasaha, sunustatasya dhammasya sangsiddhir haritoshanam. And unless one understands what is the purpose of life, regardless of his position, caste position, right? Because there are so many distinctions there in the Varnashram. Someone is thinking, I'm a Brahmin. But here we see that there are so many Mayavadi Brahmins. But how is that possible? Brahmano hi pratishtaham. How is that person a Brahmana who doesn't understand Vedanti tat tattvavidat tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdite. So all this is in the second chapter of the first canto. These are, everything is being answered. And if one simply memorizes the second chapter, he will never fail in any preaching activity. Everything will be at his fingertips. But you have to take the time to learn these essential verses. We hear Srila Prabhupada repeating them constantly. So anyway, this is something that we should take seriously if we want to be effective instruments in spreading the mission of Lord Chaitanya. This very few people can understand the advent of Lord Chaitanya, right? Who was speaking yesterday about, was it you, Ram Roy, about how we understand that, Srila Prabhupada was praying. Who was repeating that story? You were. Prabhupada going to Navadvip, and he was praying there. He was one of the devotees. And they were wondering, who is this person praying there all the time in front of the deities? And then he could understand when Prabhupada came back with all these Western devotees that, this is that same Swami we saw who was there. And when he asked why he was praying there, he was praying because, this must have been at Advaita's house. Yeah, at Shantipur, not Navadvip. That because Advaita Acharya prayed and advented for the advent of Lord Chaitanya, so Prabhupada was also praying that this would be manifest again, just suitable for the situation at hand. This is the special qualification of the spiritual master, that he understands, according to time and circumstance, how to present the essence without adulteration. This is not an easy thing. Many people try to change things according to time and circumstances and fail miserably because they don't know how to keep the thing pure. Anybody can tell a story, but there's no potency. So this is the key. And Prabhupada also gives us this hint. The Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. This sincere hearing, the ear and the heart. Two things mentioned. Not just the ear. The ear, so when we're speaking, there are so many insects in the room, so many little living entities. They're also hearing, but it is not going into their heart. There's no connection. Only the human form of life. There's some benefit for them, Prabhupada also described. But they cannot be changed the way we appreciate the description here. So this Chindanti Kovidatasya, this means with intelligence, with knowledge, one cuts the knot of ignorance that is formed in the heart over the course of millions of births. So this, and everything is there in that second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service. So especially devotees who are coming now, who are new, if they read that chapter, they will get immense benefit. They will have the essence of Krishna consciousness at their fingertips. Everything is there. Ahoitikiya pratiyata ye yatma suprasiditi. It will satisfy the self. It's unalloyed, uninterrupted. And most importantly, unmotivated. Not thinking that I'm coming for some ulterior purpose, that just to get some peace of mind. And then when I achieve this peace of mind, again, I will go out and do my nonsense activities. This is the opportunity of a lifetime if one understands it. It's like so many things are being marketed. It's impossible not to be confronted. It doesn't matter which. You walk out in the street, they have these kiosks even. And they're just constantly pushing some advertisement or some message. Do this, do that. Get vaccinated. Do that. It's like, there's no question that this is a type of propaganda. And it is all pervasive. It is everywhere. And one has to utilize his intelligence to try to understand what is reality, what is in our real beneficial interest for the eternal soul, not the temporary material body. So if we pay attention to the words of the acharyas, Prabhupada also hinted that, one becomes an authority simply by presenting whatever he has heard from his spiritual master. There's nothing else required. If one thinks that I will make some adjustment to make it easier, because how can it be easier if it has already been proven by the fact of this huge global revolution? Susukam kartam avyam in the Bhagavad Gita. This knowledge is the king of knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. Rajavidya Rajagoyam Pavitsamedamuttamam Pratyaksavagamam Dharmyam Susukam kartam avyam. So everything is already there. It's perfect. You don't have to do anything. It's like when we pass these books out, we don't have to give a long introduction. We just have to somehow or other catch their attention and get them to appreciate that this is the best thing that they will ever receive in their entire life, if they just read it. Nothing else is required. Right? But there's endeavor. So that endeavor is required. And that is our purpose. Our purpose is nimitta matram bhava savyasachin, to become instruments. And an instrument is no good if it is not in working order. A broken hammer is a useless hammer. Right? If I hand you a broken hammer and say, go fix this, you'll say, what? You're giving me a broken instrument. What can I do with this? But if I give you a good hammer, then you're well equipped. The best. So that is our obligation, our duty, is to accept this process of purification sincerely and endeavor with determination. And then automatically all success will be there, as it's described in the first canto, second chapter of Divinity and Divine Service. It's just a matter of reading. It's not and this is not a very long chapter. And I can't stress it enough. One time in the old days, and this is not to say that there is something wrong with the old days, just that it was a different method of hearing. In those days we had cassettes. and you had to physically pop it into a tape recorder, and after 30 minutes you had to flip it. But it served its purpose. We had Prabhupada's words in any condition of service. If we were washing the pots, unfortunately at that time everybody was into rock and roll, so devotees who joined were all musicians practically. We had these huge amplifiers. We would go to devotees' houses and we would collect all their paraphernalia. Immediately we sold the instruments because they were not any use to us. But we had these Marshall amps, huge amplifiers, and we'd stick it in the pot room and jack in our cassette tape recorders and crank it up and listen to Prabhupada till it bounced off the walls. The pot rack would shake. And we would listen to Prabhupada, would just go in. Because when you're washing the pots, you're making a lot of noise. Pots are clanging, you're endeavoring with great determination. But Prabhupada's words would go in our ears. And in that way, we were hearing in such a condition that the effect was amplified by the intensity of the service. So this was a great benediction for us. We weren't thinking along those lines necessarily, but the result speaks volumes. That so many devotees were introduced to Prabhupada's lectures in this way. Because there wasn't much time to listen, because unfortunately, for whatever reason, or fortunately, the time for sleeping was less. Maximum there was 5 hours sleeping time. And so if you tried to sit down and listen to the cassette, you'd be snoring in 5 minutes. What to speak of trying to listen to a cassette? Prabhupada used to give lectures personally in the temple room, and he would say, "I've noticed everyone is sleeping." And people would try to give excuses, and Prabhupada would say, "No, we don't accept these excuses." And he would say, "Okay, if you need an hour in a day, you take that rest." But the perfect opportunity for hearing was in a place like the pot room, where you were engaged, or cutting sabji. So we made arrangements to listen. So if you're thinking, how can I increase my listening? Krishna will give you that intelligence. And you will think, so that whatever you're doing, you're listening. You'll see some, the advanced, like, you look at Krishna Kripa or even, Jayananda, he's listening, he's got his headphones on, he's listening to his Guru Maharaj. Or Krishna Kripa's got his headphones on when he's walking around, he's doing something, he's cooking sweets, but he's listening. So in that way, we should always be looking for every opportunity to hear, because that is ultimately what will penetrate into our heart and affect that Chaita Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadevagni Nirvapana. It will cleanse the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, lifetimes, eons. This is not just a one-time thing. Human form of life is so rare. We've heard in different places, Prabhupada described that if you don't achieve success now, if you take Krishna consciousness lightly, and again, pick up material activities, says you will not get another human birth for 1 million years. Which, of course, in context with eternity is just a drop in a bucket, right? Lifetime of Lord Brahma is 311 trillion years. His 1/11th of a second is our 1 year. His 1/11th of a second. Lava Matra. And that same 1/11th of a second, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Sastrakoya, can bring you perfection if you're hearing from a pure devotee. But you have to keep it. It's just like if I give you something very valuable and you take it very carelessly and you don't mind it. And sometimes we see devotees saying, "Oh, where did I leave my bead bag? I can't find my beads." Your most precious possession, but you've lost track of them. Where's my beads? Can't find my beads. So this type of carelessness is compounded if one doesn't take seriously to Krishna consciousness. He will get benefit. He will get benefit. Krishna also explains that. But you don't know when. When he says, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, that you will take birth in a pious family, he doesn't say next birth necessarily. He says you'll pick up where you left off, but the gap, just like when you're walking in the train station, what does it say? It says, mind the gap. Have you seen that on the platform? Mind the gap. It does, so you don't step in accidentally, get your foot caught and get run over by the material energy. Right? Get knocked into another body. Right? So mind the gap. Don't think, okay, it's okay, everything is okay. No. We have to be very selective where we place our attention. So we want to place our attention where it will produce the most benefit. Right? Everyone is thinking like that. Materially speaking, when you try to start up a business, what are they calculating? ROI, return on investment. All right? It doesn't matter, your business plan can be so complicated, thousands of pages, but if you cannot demonstrate what the return on the investment will be, no one will take care. I'll say, what is this? It's just a bunch of paper. So every day we understand what is the return on the investment. It's every single page of the Bhāgavatam is giving us this clear indication. Tyaktva deyam punarjama nayati mamiti sarjana. If you understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and disappearance, this is the guarantee. You will never take birth again, and you'll go to Krishna. So everyone is looking for guarantee. When you buy your iPhone, what do they look? Oh, I have to register my device so that it's under warranty. And not only that, if you want an additional warranty, you have to pay extra. So everything has some exchange. So we also have some exchange. And that exchange is that we have to engage continuously in this effort to please the Supreme Lord and His pure devotees. And then everything is automatically. Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yatha Deve Tata Guru. It is not a simple shloka, meter with a few syllables. But this is the encapsulation, like a code. When you're in Boy Scouts or the military, you learn Morse code. And that's one aspect of condensed information. But these sutra also means code, condensed information. So in just one shloka, and what is the example? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke on one shloka for 3 months. What was that shloka, Radhesha? 3 months. So we're reading one a day, technically. But we have the opportunity to invest a little extra effort into appreciating Srila Prabhupada's sacrifice. When you look inside Prabhupada's museum, you'll see in the glass cases, these are the original Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in Sanskrit and Bengali. And from those two books, we have all of these books. There are some other books, but essentially these two books became hundreds of volumes of books. And then they're distributed, and there's millions and millions of these books distributed. So this expansion, this is how we can understand, the potency of a pure devotee. It's not simply, it describes in the Bhagavad Gita how he sits, how he talks, etc. But this is the perfection of these examples, is the expansion of knowledge coming down directly in this chain of disciplic succession. And people don't necessarily understand until they've read and been exposed how amazing this lifetime of Srila Prabhupada was. It's just difficult. But we know, so therefore we have to take it seriously. We saw Srila Prabhupada use his entire life, his retirement point, when everyone else is simply trying to relax. And he dedicated himself completely up to this point. We're reading in Lilamrita, I have done my part. And now it is time for us to do our part. So this is not it is a burden of love. It is not a burden of, like Prabhupada described, just to give some emphasis. He said in Vrindavan in that lecture that you think this rascal spiritual master has given you a burden. But of course, that was to impress upon the devotees that we should take this seriously. Why would Srila Prabhupada give us such a task if it was not of the utmost importance? And that minimization of the order of the spiritual master is the death of one's spiritual life. Cannot exist in that consciousness of simply trying to do the minimum. It will produce an adverse mentality. We are here to dedicate ourselves fully. This is what it means. Surrender. It is not just a word in a dictionary, but it's an entire mode of life for those who understand what it can achieve. Just like we see Lord Chaitanya, he's there on the altar. His hands are raised up. Even in the movies, when you watch the movies, what does the person do when he wants to surrender? What does he do? He raises his hands. But he's surrendering to the wrong thing. But that's the universal form, so it's there even at that point. When Draupadi was being disrobed, she was holding on tightly. But then she's thinking, how can I, against all these warriors, Maharathas, how can I save myself? So immediately she threw up her hands and she surrendered. Krishna, and Krishna immediately provided unlimited cloth. So we're thinking that this is just some pose that we, partake of in the kirtan for show, then we don't understand what is the meaning of surrender. We have to show Krishna by thought, word, and deeds. Everything has to be there. Prabhupada gave that definition of surrender, sarvatmana. Sarvatmana. He said, full surrender, no reservation. Right? Nothing holding back. Sarvatmana. With all one's heart. So this takes some effort. One does not, just like if I introduce you to someone and say, love this person. This is not something that you can do. You have to know this person. They even have that, they say, to know him is to love him. Right? But that's the point. You have to know that person. So in that same way, we have every opportunity. Without exposure here, we would not be able to develop the emotion. All right? So it is not artificial. We're learning to love through the agency of the spiritual master. He is giving us that opportunity. It's a very important consideration. And not because if we cannot, if our hearts are very hard, all right, that's that chindanti kovida point. That with knowledge one cuts the granta, the hridaya, the knot in the heart. All right, but how does that happen? By developing this relationship with the spiritual master. One cannot have a relationship with Krishna directly. Many people have tried, and no one is successful up to this point. You know, you're not an eternal associate. You're not Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. You're not Mother Yashoda. You're not Nanda Maharaj. You know, this becomes a futile effort, ending in disappointment and frustration, or some abomination like Sahaja. But when one develops this, that's why that verse is there, Yasyadevi Parabhaktir. One has implicit faith in the spiritual master and Krishna, then everything, the imports of the Vedas are automatically revealed. Janaya Yasuvairagyam. So this is very important. Everything is coming there, but you're not getting this bhakti without some effort to develop this relationship, with the authority, with the spiritual master. And of course, this is what it describes here, that one becomes an authority simply by presenting whatever he has heard from his spiritual master. And one who does not accept a bona fide spiritual master cannot be an authority. It can't be more clear. But yet, people will try. We've seen it over the course of years. Many people have tried to become their independent authority, separate from ISKCON. Right? But this is all, the Maya Sukhaya. He's trying to find happiness using Maya as his own tool, because he knows if I can bewilder some people, because they're all foolish, cheaters and the cheated. So everyone can take advantage. If you want to cheat someone, it's actually very easy. Not difficult. And so people who are looking for spiritual life cheaply, they're easily cheated. In Vrindavan, there are hundreds of people, thousands of people who go to these persons who will flatter their ego. And then they will think, yes, this person understands me. He is my teacher. He is my guide. But they will not get any real benefit. And actually, whatever time they spend in that endeavor is shrama evahi kevalam, useless waste of time. So this is the point. We have to know what is the goal. We have to know everything about that. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami always stressed this. One has to know what are these 3 points. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Who am I? What is my relationship with God? And what is the goal of this relationship? So these things are there. You'll see. If you stick within this, then you will never go wrong. You can always question yourself. So we should be very careful in all of our dealings with our God brothers and God sisters. This is our training period, right? When you're small, you give the child a bicycle and he has those wheels on the side. In America, they call them training wheels. So this is how we learn how to develop these priti laksham, these loving relationships. If you cannot develop a loving relationship with your God brothers and God sisters, then how will you develop a loving relationship with your spiritual master and Krishna? It is not possible. It cannot be done. Guru Kripa Maharaj asked that question, essentially. He told Prabhupada, I don't like ISKCON. I don't like my God brothers. I only like you. And Prabhupada said, I am ISKCON. So you have to be careful in the way you arrange your thoughts around your activities, and your every interaction is an opportunity for advancement in spiritual life. It's up to you to make that choice. How I will be in this situation. How will I respond? How will I initiate? Everything has to be there. And it all has to be based on This tadati pratigrinati goyamakyati prachati. Not otherwise. Is everyone reading Nectar of Instruction yet? Nuda, I know Bhakta Phil is reading now, Nectar of Instruction. I told you to read. That's something that should be read. All new. Prabhupada specifically took time out of translating 17 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita to translate Nectar of Instruction, this Upadesh Amrit. Very important. Every devotee has to read. Prabhupada gave instructions like that. The movement was expanding, and it needed to be, we already had so many books. Why would Prabhupada take the time out? Because he saw a need, an immediate need. The movement was expanding so quickly at that time, 1975, that he needed to make sure that these points and principles were clear in everyone's mind. So everything is there if you read that Nectar of Instruction. So should we read the translation again? Sri Sutta Goswami continued, my dear Brahmana, Shata, Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kosharava, Maitreya. And he was very pleased. See, we'll also be pleased. Any questions? Not too many. We have Maha cleanup today. Kitchen Maha cleanup. Who's cooking breakfast, Natabar?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class.
Natabar is so expert.
It seems that surrendering to Krishna as a gradual...
A little loud, Prabhu.
It seems surrendering to Krishna as a gradual process. And that if we increase our faith, trust, and knowledge of Krishna, we'll surrender faster or something. So, how can we increase our faith and trust in Krishna? How can we speed up the process of surrender?
It's a very good question. The way we, in our experience, the way we sped up the process was engaging in something that involved a conscious endeavor to do something that you might not want to do, like wash the pots or clean the bathrooms. These things require, because you have to convince yourself, why am I doing this activity? What is the difference? In other words, it's not something that people normally do nowadays, apparently. They have dishwashers. They have maids. Nobody cleans after themselves in many circumstances. And when you come to the temple, you think, oh, what is this? I have to wash pots? I have to clean a bathroom? But if one surrenders to it, thinking, okay, these are nice people, let me try to contribute something. Let me do it. By that endeavor, by consciously making that effort to do something out of your comfort zone, that is surrender. You may not even know it's surrender. Sometimes we have to forcibly say, okay, I'll surrender to this. Temple president told me, okay, I'll surrender. And I'll do it. Even if one doesn't like to do it necessarily. Prabhupada gave the example that even if you don't want to dance, if you just dance, the enthusiasm, the bliss will come automatically. So we have to, by experience, by doing something, we will realize, okay, this is not so bad. We'll get rewarded. I've said this before, but when Prabhupada was in the temple, you never knew where Prabhupada would be at any given moment. I was cleaning the bathroom there was in Henry Street. We had certain bathrooms that would be reserved for certain, if a person was visiting a dignitary, he could come into the office. Otherwise, we didn't have any public, so-called public, but this was as public a bathroom as you could have, a few stalls like that. general purpose bathroom. And I wasn't very happy about cleaning the bathroom, I could be honest with you. I was chanting quite loudly, too loudly. Probably a little bit, sounded like some foolish person, like a new bhakta. And so I saw Prabhupada walk by. I immediately thought, oh, now I've really made some offense. Because Prabhupada is always translating, and now I was doing something that may have disturbed him. I was feeling quite foolish at that point. But then Prabhupada continued, and I just went back to cleaning the bathroom silently at that point. But then he later remarked that this person was cleaning the bathroom and he was chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't see anything wrong with that. So the key is to just engage in the activity, whatever it is, whether it's cleaning the bathroom or worshiping the deities on the altar, but one's consciousness, he has to always try to appreciate that I'm doing this service on the order of the spiritual master. And that accelerates it. If I'm just thinking I'm doing it because I'm going to eat lunch in 30 minutes and, or I'll get the temple commander off my back, then you're not getting the benefit. I'm satisfying the minimum in order to be able to stay in the temple. No, this is not the mentality. Everything we do here is conducive to surrender, but you have to have the favorable attitude. That's the whole point. Favorable. Right? That's the definition of devotional service. Favorable. What's that verse, Ram Roy? In the next verse. We all know it, but as we age, the neurons become coated. That's how Alzheimer takes up, and all these pathways disconnected. So that's why it's important to constantly hear and chant if one wants to remain a proper instrument. So any other question? Did that answer your question? I don't know. We want to accelerate the process. Do something that you know will please Krishna, whether you like to do it or not. Ladies first, Phil.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice class. I had a question. You spoke about how we should be constantly hearing. You spoke about, how you'd be washing the dishes in the kitchen, and there'd be something, Prabhupada's lecture or kirtan playing or something. For someone like myself, I now, at this point in time at least, live outside of the temple. And what would you suggest for someone like myself who, so badly wants to be just fully engaged in, the holy name, but at this point in time is not in a position to be able to fill my my mind, my soul, my heart with that at this moment.
It's not a secret, everybody knows that if you desire something purely, that in itself is a purification. And it is not that, just like Srila Prabhupada, he accepted, right, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as his spiritual master on their first meeting, Radhe Shyam was saying, Prabhu, on their first meeting. So once the heart has made that decision, it will become a commitment according to your continued desire to somehow or other execute this, because we're not always in a position to be surrendered, so to speak. We have obligations. But the key is to never, ever forget Krishna. This is what Prabhupada told us. And that remembrance will keep you connected. And of course, you will have opportunity. And at that point, it's important to recognize that opportunity so that you can take advantage of it. Right? What is the famous example in the material world is, that if you, Confucius said it one way. He said the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So we all have this opportunity to plant that seed and to water it. And the analogy is there, the bhakti at the beach. And however little it is, we don't minimize. This is the whole point is that there's no loss of diminution. So if you're in the Grihastha ashram, like I am, and you're engaged in some activity that doesn't put you in direct contact with devotional service on a full-time basis, then you have to make arrangements how to remain Krishna consciousness in that ashram. If you want it to be, there's that. Of course, there's that famous verse, that another one of those moments. But Matirna Krishna Paratak Svatova Mito Vipadyeti Griha Vitanam Adanta Gobir Vishtatam Tamisham Punak Punas Chavata Chavananam. This that the Grihastha ashram, this is like a dark well. This is Prabhupada's comparison from that verse. So one can execute his duties favorably by even it's the simplest thing. What does Bhagavad Gita say? Patram pushpam palam toyam. Can it be more simple than that? A leaf, a fruit, a flower, some water. Everyone can grow tulsi. Everyone can offer water. The Shalagram Shila is in the home of every Brahmana. This is how the Grihasthas keep their consciousness purified, because one has to be, he has to think, well, before I worship the deity, I have to take bath. I have to be pure. Oma pavitra pavitrava savavastam katorva. He has to be thinking all. So this is always purifying his mind every single day. He may not have the opportunity at the moment, but when the opportunity comes, he must take it, like Prabhupada. He didn't remain in the Grihastha ashram. He was there. He did everything responsibly. But Krishna was taking things away. He was giving him notice that now is the time. Who can imagine? And this is, of course, just an example for us. We understand Prabhupada's preeminent position. It's not that of an ordinary person. But still, for example, we saw how he took Vanaprastha at that point. So that's important. We have to do that. You cannot remain entangled your entire life. And Prabhupada gave us so many instructions. And it just, you have to be aware. The order of the spiritual master is my most important consideration. Because that will help everyone in the family. We use the analogy of watering the root of the tree and to give nourishment to the leaves and branches. But this is the same thing with the family. We're not helping the family by remaining till the end of life and dwindling and vanishing in front of them. There's no benefit there. They don't get any benefit. The benefit is that in the service to the spiritual master at the end of the life, one fulfills his obligation. And then automatically, every family member is benefited. What does it say in the 7th canto in Srimad Prahlad Maharaj? Lord Nrsingadev is offering him a blank check of benediction. Whatever you want, you can have. And Prahlad Maharaj's response is, I am not a, what does he use? Baniya. He says, I'm not a Baniya. Baniya is a pejorative term for the merchant class in India. When you say that this person is a Baniya, it's not a nice thing. You're saying he is a pound, shilling, pence man who's going to cheat you at the first opportunity. And so the word is banik. That is the root of baniya, banik. So he's saying, I'm not in this relationship. This is not a mercantile exchange that I do something for you and you do something for me. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. No, he says, I'm simply trying to please you, Prahlad Maharaj is saying. I don't want anything, but if you want to give one thing, please save my father, who you just ripped in half. Please save him. And he says, what to speak of your father? He said, for 14 generations, 7 generations before and 7 generations after are all liberated. All liberated. So what the benefit? If I leave them an insurance, I die and I leave an insurance policy with a few $1,000s in it, does that benefit the family? What is the benefit? Or if I, withdraw from family affairs in order to fully serve the personality of Godhead and his pure devotee and give them liberation, but not just ordinary liberation. This is the same point that the Lord is making to Prahlad Maharaj. For the devotee, this is not just some simple liberation. So their family members are getting a benefit which is not, you cannot calculate on a material platform. So don't think that by somehow or other making some material facility and arrangements you're benefiting the family. That is the illusion. That is the illusion. And we're reading about it in the teachings of Queen Kunti right now. So we have to we have to do everything very carefully. You do your household affairs to a certain point, and then you have to know at which point, when the kids are all grown, do you think they want you hanging around? They want you out of their lives as quickly as possible. Who needs this person always telling me what to do? Trying to, they have a term. It's called helicopter parents. Have you ever heard helicopter parents? You know what a helicopter does? The unique trait of a helicopter is that it can hover in one place. So helicopter parents means the parent who's always hovering around the child. Child can't do anything independently of the parent. Helicopter parenting. It's not a good term. So we don't want to do that. We've given them everything. Now they're on their own. It's their decisions. They have to do what they're going to do. And we should be happy with that, because if we know that we're going to do what we're supposed to do. So that's the point. We have to know what we're going to do. Any other questions? Maybe we can continue the conversation a little bit later, because it's getting late. We have Maha cleanup. I'm not going anyplace, but I have a Zoom meeting in 15 minutes with our illustrious GBC men, and I have to excuse myself. So thank you all for listening very patiently to Srimad Bhāgavatam, the words of the great sages, and of course the person Bhagavata. And please try to take it, as seriously as you can at this time, and implement it to whatever extent you can at this time. Don't think, oh, this is too much, I can't do anything. No, you take whatever you can and you implement that, whatever it is. Right? If you can chant one mantra, you chant one mantra. If you can chant 16 rounds every day for the rest of your life, please. Your life will be perfect. Srila Prabhupada ki. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki.
His Grace Hansrupa ki.
I have to go, but if you have a quick one,